Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are today. My name is Paolo Corti, and I am working with the ENOEL librarians, as usual, to facilitate a new workshop in our Embrace the Open series. Today, our focus is on connecting open education and open science recognition practices in your institution. So our facilitators in the room will help you to address this issue, thinking about your own institutional practices. I'm happy also to have a nice guest in the room. Let me introduce our facilitator first, and then we will move to our guest. Please be aware that we are recording this workshop, so consider your options in terms of being visible on screen or close your camera. Monique, next slide, please. Thank you. So we have in the room three great facilitators. Some of you might have seen them before. We have Marta Bustillo, who is digital learning librarian at University College Dublin in Ireland. Thank you, Marta, for being volunteering once again to facilitate one of our workshops. We have Sylvia Moes from the Netherlands. She's a consultant, open learning and infrastructures at SURF and NPULS. Thank you, Sylvia, for joining us and facilitating this workshop. And we have, last but not least, Monique Schoutsen, project leader, open education and information skills and support at information and library services at Radboud University in the Netherlands. Welcome, Monique. Nice to have you in the team of facilitators today. And last but not least, next slide, please. We have a guest who already joined us last week for an Open Education Café on the same subject, but today helping us dive into even more practical details. Thank you for joining us, Marijn Post from Han University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. And now the floor is yours.
So, do I start immediately? Or
No,
okay.
I think that we start from the learning outcomes and the index for today, right?
Yes. Okay, so I think I'll go and I'll introduce the plan for today. We've already had Paola's very kind introduction, and we're going to have a presentation by Marijn about the connections between open education and open science. We'll have a little bit of time for questions from Marijn afterwards, and then we'll have an interactive part, which will be a discussion with three areas of focus. One is under identifying strategies to promote recognition of open educational practices as part of open science initiatives. The second one is what kind of practical approaches can you think of to integrate open education and its recognition into open science workflows in your institutional context. And finally, let's reflect on our role and potential contribution as librarians. And Monique, then somebody else wants to say the learning outcomes?
Go ahead, Marta.
Or I can say them. So
Yeah.
by the end of the workshop, you will be able to explore connections between open education and open science, identify strategies for promoting recognition of open educational practices as part of open science initiatives, apply practical approaches, which we love in the ENOEL network, practicalities, to integrate open education and its recognition into open science workflows in your institutional context, and then reflect about your potential role as a librarian in advancing open educational practices within open science. So first of all, before we move on to Marijn's presentation, we wanted to ask you a question. What is your current role in your institution? Just so we get a sense of who we have in the room and what kinds of discussions might emerge related to the roles that we have in the room. So if you can all go to the chat and tell us what roles you have in your institution. Okay, thank you, Suzanne, Deputy Director. And thank you, Maura, OER librarian, the only one in Ireland.
Mm.
And Robert, not affiliated, but obviously a very important expert. Bridie, Open Scholarship Officer with IRIL. IRIL is one of the Ireland's consortiums for purchasing electronic resources in libraries. And my colleague Sandra, our Academic Integrity and AI Librarian. Marielle, Librarian. And Paola, Instructional Designer. And Stewart, Subject Librarian in TU Dublin. Yes, Maura, I hope we will have more dedicated OER librarians soon. And Kim, Training Director, African Library and Information Associations and Institutions. So welcome, thank you. And Joachim, Digital Skills Lead, just like me. This is a really interesting combination of roles. Thank you so much for putting in all your roles. And I don't know if we have left anyone behind, but there's nothing else coming up. So, and Shazia, Academic Librarian for Health and Sciences and Medicine. Let's give it one more minute maybe, just in case somebody else wants to put in their role. And nothing else coming up. So Monique, let's just move on and go on with Marijn's presentation. Thank you, Marijn.
Yeah. So I was asked to do a talk here, and I'm currently working as a policy advisor in learning with ICT at Han University, and mainly working on open education and making sure open education reach whole the Han, whole our institute. But now I had to think about open science again. Well, I was a librarian before, so I know a bit about open science. And also connect this to recognition and reward. So I had to think about how I'm going to give this talk. But I start with our own Dutch universities who start a recognition and reward program about 3 or 4 years ago. And that was because people were a little bit fed up with only being recognized for their research output, age indexes, impact factors, things like that. Some researchers were also really active in education or in society, and they were really keen on being recognized for that also. So this program was started to diversify and vitalize the career path of our Dutch research career path. And there was a whole program around it, affiliated by all Dutch scholarship providers. And you can see the picture here that it's not only about research, but also about education, about the impact that researchers make in society, and also about the leadership they show in their own university. And I think you can move on to the next slide. And more practical, they say we have to focus more on quality, we have to stimulate academic leadership, we have to achieve balance between what individuals do and the impact they have on the collective. But also, a really important part of this program was stimulating open science. We encouraged academics to share their research outcomes with society. So that was nice. You can go to the next. So then this whole program started and open science was coming in again. And so first, what is open science? Maybe most people who sit here already knows that, but Just to think about it again, so open science is a set of principles and practices that aim to make scientific research from all fields accessible to everyone for the benefits of scientists and society as a whole. Open science is about making sure not only that scientific knowledge is accessible, but also that the production of that knowledge itself is inclusive, equitable, and sustainable. This is from UNESCO. And our it's called Dutch University. That is institutes above all our universities in the Netherlands. They make a translation of this open science, and they say they see it quite broad. And you see here that it's about open software and open hardware, open data, fair data, open communication, but also they say open education is part of open science. So this is really interesting. So the open education is part of open science. You can move on to the next slide. So then what is open education? Yeah, I should ask Robert this, of course, because I think I use his definition here now. But it's not really clear what open education is. But we described in a discussion paper, which is in Dutch, but you probably can easily translate it in English if you want. It has two core characteristics. That is, it's value-driven and enriches the goals of education and the way education is organized. For example, that is, it's accessible, it's inclusive, it's equal, high quality. And it has also instrumentally driven characteristics. Elements that can realize the value of open education for an institute. And most often, if we talk about open education, we also talk about open educational resources, which are learning, teaching, and research material in the public domain or under copyright that have been released under open license. You can move on. But maybe you already noticed that the same values are under these two. Words like inclusive, high quality, communication, knowledge sharing, they're both underlying open education and open science. And I really like this picture it is from the University of Utrecht, from their open science program, which says that both open education and open research are accelerators for a whole couple of things that make the world better, like leadership, like working together, like having impact on society, transparency. So actually, they're a cut from the same cloth. And I see a lot that in Dutch universities, open education hangs under open science. But I think if you turn it around, then maybe in Dutch universities of applied sciences, maybe open science hangs under open education. So it's just the specific thing you want to add and which will play a role in your institute, which you can choose, because the values of opening are actually the same. You can go to the next slide. And I think Monique pointed me to this publication of Pola, actually, which also says we should connect the opens. And that's not only open science and open education, but all the other opens there are, like open innovation, open data, open hardware. They all have the same principles and values underneath them. Yeah, you can move on. And we also see that open science and open education moves on on like a pillar. Sometimes open science gets open education. Sometimes open education will turn in open science. For example, there was a MOOC. Yeah, well, of course, a MOOC is open education. But it was used as open science because the theoretical and practical insights in that MOOC was used to provide knowledge and making things better. in another institute. So then open education turns into open science. Or sometimes open data, maybe Monique can tell a little bit more about that, but sometimes open data are used in learning tasks to learn how to work with data. So there's an open data set. Students have to learn how to work with data, and then it becomes open education. Do you want to tell a little bit? The pictures on the left are from this specific example. Do you want to tell a little bit more about that, Monique?
Yeah, we had a Erasmus-funded project, Radboud University together with Amsterdam University and the University of Tromsø. And we made an e-learning module on how to use open data in education. And the screenshots of the videos are in the e-learning. I have put a link to the e-learning in the slide, so you can see it afterwards, or I will send it to you if you ask.
Yeah. And a very simple example of this is, of course, well, I studied in university and I had to read research articles a lot to learn how to interpret them, to use them, to make my own articles of them again. And of course, today a lot of these research articles are digital and also open. So if you use open research articles in your learning tasks to make students learn how to read an article, for example, yeah, then these open science articles turn into open education. So you can play with that. Sometimes open education will turn into open science, and sometimes open science will turn into open education. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So back to open science or open education, we see a lot of Dutch universities, not the universities of applied sciences. There's no, this is no item, but at Dutch universities, we see a lot of them putting their open education part into their open science policy. And that's of course also because our the large program says open education is a part of open science. So that is really nice. And because Dutch universities put this open education as part of the open science policy, they also think about their recognition and reward of open science and make it formal in their HR policy. So then open will be part of the annual performance and evaluation interviews with their employees. And not only open science, but also open education, using open data, making sure things are fair, etc., etc. And we also see this. Oh, can you go back?
Sorry?
Yeah, we also see this in national policy. So, of course, you already showed you the statement of UNL, but also more and more these open science principles and practices will put open education in their policy. But we have to lobby for that to make that happen. And I think the TU Delft. Oh, you can go back again.
Okay.
Yeah, I think TU Delft did a nice job here, showing that open science is more about values. Oh, yeah, more about values than if it's education, if it's data, if it's whatever. So you can go to the next slide now, Monique. So, and I'm working on the impact of open education at the moment. And by being an open educator, you also have impact on open science. Because you have all kinds of level in your career path as a teacher. So maybe you just use OER in your education, then you have impact, for example, on the user. Maybe you create OER yourself and you also share OER. Then you have impact on your students, but also on your institute and your colleagues. But you can also take it a bit further and, for example, doing research with OER or sharing knowledge about these OER, or maybe you are influencing national policy by telling people how important open education is. And then you're an open leader, but also busy with doing open science because you share your knowledge on OER and the impact of OER with the society, and that's actually what open science is, I think. Yeah, can go to the next slide. Okay, then more about recognition and reward. So you saw that the Dutch recognition and reward program focuses a lot on career path and formal HR policies. And that's really about the formal part of recognition and reward. And I think a lot of people are really glad that they get recognized formally by the institute, because normally that means you get a promotion or you get better work, or you get more qualifications to do the things you like. But an important part of this recognition and reward is also the informal part of recognition and reward and the semi-formal recognition and rewards. And these rewards are less touchable, and it's more about people telling you how well you did it. Or people like this. I'm being recognized by Paola and Sylvia because they asked me to speak here. That's also a recognition of my expertise on recognition of open education. But it could also be recognition by your community, for example. So maybe you get so and I'm looking for the English word of a keurmerk. Maybe Sylvia can help me.
A
Or
quality mark.
yeah, quality mark of your OER from your community, and they say it's really the quality of your OER is really good, and then that's a form of semi-formal because the quality marks has specific things you have to work into, and but those are also other ways of recognize than the formal ones. But they are maybe even more important because if somebody tells you how nice your work was and that they were inspired by it, maybe you get more intrinsic motivated than if you get a promotion and more money. But, and then you go to the next slide. So, and actually, what I'm telling about now is this model we made. So, if you with open education, you can get all kinds of results you showed, and it has also to do by the level you make impact on. So, of course, making an OER is the result then, but you can also share your knowledge, do a presentation, and all these kind of things, all these levels of result can be recognized and rewarded. And these recognition of reward can so be informal, semi-formal, or formal, but also can apply it to your extrinsic motivation or your intrinsic motivation. And we see that a lot of these formal recognitions do apply more to your extrinsic motivation because they are about certification, they're about getting a promotion, they're about maybe get more money, or you can go to a conference. And that's okay because you need these extrinsic motivations to, become active, do something. But in the end, that's not why people continue working on OER, for example. So, for example, we see in the Netherlands we had an open and online education scholarship. People really start working on OER on several teams, but when the money was gone, it most of the time, because there are examples where it didn't, but most of the time it stopped. except for one group who I think were really intrinsic motivated, and that was a group of nurses who still are working on OER. But I think they are more intrinsic motivated. And this intrinsic motivation, and I think you can go to the next slide. Oh, well, one further. The combination was not that good. Yeah, this one. And this intrinsic motivation for, I think, all the opens are more about the value it gives an individual or the value it gives the organization. And it's, for example, the value your work gives to yourself. So teachers really like to make their students happy. So everything which helps making students happy will make the teacher happy. It's really nice if you are supported by your manager. So if your manager encourages you to work making the students happy, working, sharing your knowledge, then you will keep doing it. If you have a job which gives you autonomy in what you do, you will get more intrinsically motivated to do things, and it will help grow your. And also, if you can develop yourself and your own knowledge and share this knowledge with others, working together on that knowledge, these are also values which apply to this intrinsic motivation. And for OER, an important one is the accessibility to the learning materials, for example. Student engagement will be better, and also that students don't have to pay a lot of money to buy their materials. These are really values who apply to the intrinsic motivation of teachers. And I think you can also say the same thing for open science, because as a researcher, you doing research to innovate your work, to making the world better, to make sure the diseases will get cured, for example. And I think these are the same values. So if you work on curing a disease, for example, that's really meaningful work. And especially if you can share this knowledge with others so that more people can get cured. So I think the values under open education and open science are similar. And then maybe a little bit back to these extrinsic rewards. So I already told you these more intrinsically motivated recognition and rewards are better. But you do need these extrinsic rewards. Can you go one slide back? And at Han, we're trying to do both and making sure that the extrinsic motivation applies to the values behind open education. So we get rewards for our teachers when they innovate with open, for example, or if they professionalize themselves with in open, or if they do the whole open learning cycle. We give them something. We have a lunchbox, or they get a sweater, or the open ambassadors at our university get a jacket. But there's a story behind these lunchboxes. So on the lunchbox is a QR code where they can get to a website in our institute when there's where we do the talk about why open is important. So we also try to load the term open. Why is open important? Giving meaning to the word open and why it is important. So you should do both. Both give these extrinsic motivator, but also make sure people learn what open is about and why the value of open is important. So hopefully I think that was my last slide. hopefully give some inspiration about the connection between open education and open science, and also how to recognize and reward them. And then I think we can go to the discussion.
Thank you, Marijn. If you have any questions for Marijn, just quickly before we go into the discussion, either put them in the chat or just open your mic and ask them. Okay. Let's see.
Was very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
I have one question for you, Marijn.
Yeah.
You did a wonderful job in your institution to bring this on the eye of different stakeholders to work on this. Can you tell us a little bit more what the success in this? How did you achieve this? Can you tell a little bit about that?
You mean the whole program or the?
Yeah, that you have the management with you and the institution behind
Yeah,
it,
maybe
because it's a major job.
that was because there was a acceleration plan about 4 years ago in the Netherlands, and one part of this acceleration plan was accelerating working with open educational resources. And then they acknowledged, as the managers of that acceleration plan acknowledged, that there was a lot to do on digital and open educational resources. And they made a statement with all universities and universities of applied science that we have to work together on taking control of these digital and open educational resources. We call it the statement.
Yeah.
And but our member of the board was part of this group of managers who thought it was really important.
Okay.
But we were lobbying way back before this happened at our institute. So I think there was like a wave, and there were also little waves, and the waves came together, and we jumped on the wave at the right time. And our Yvonne, our member of the board, was really keen on doing this program.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a nice podcast where she tells you about why she thought it was that important. It's in Dutch actually, but for the Dutch members here. And then we thought on how we can do that, and we thought we have to work both, bottom up, top down and bottom up. And we now talk with all the directors of our academies on this part, and we also start professionalize our teachers. So I think we try to take all the layers in our institutes and try to teach them what open is really about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really impressive because the middle management, the middle layer
Yeah.
is most of the time the most hard layer because they
Yeah.
are in between and
Struggling with that one,
sometimes
actually.
with resources and yeah.
Yeah, so still struggling with this mid-management.
Yeah.
I think they actually are the most important. I think also they have the most difficult role in universities because they have to talk both up
Yeah.
and down.
Yeah.
But thinking now about how we are going to do that, we really have to influence them because we already see that sometimes we really want things and our board says you have to do things, and then people are not doing it. So
Yeah.
and managers say, "Oh, but it's okay that I do it the wrong way." So well, yeah, I think we're in our program. We now come to the part where we have to go to the mid management and think about how we're going to influence them, because the teachers they own this value. So well, and also the directors also
Yeah.
see the value.
Yeah.
But managers have most of the time look, how can we work, and how many people do I
Exactly.
have? How many hours do I have?
Yeah. Yeah.
They work day by day actually.
Yeah.
So
I
Yeah.
recognize that. Yes. There was a question, I think, Marta.
Marijn, just a comment from Maura.
Yeah.
So you've already influenced somebody in this workshop.
Yeah.
She says that she's interested in developing a peer review approach for our institution as part of our OER creation life cycle. And I'm going to be more mindful of the recognition component.
Yeah.
So recognition for that peer review of OER.
Yeah.
As she was thinking purely from an OER quality perspective initially.
Yeah,
But I
and
think that's really important.
I think that it's really important. And if you go to the slide with the all the one back,
The
I
previous
think
one?
maybe one more back.
Here?
Yeah,
You want this?
then peer review each other is part of this recognition framework, because peer reviewing and letting people know they are really okay with what you do or really like what you do, or maybe also give some tops on what you do. That's really a way to recognize somebody's work. So I think it's I think micro semi-formal, depends a little bit how the peer review is given. So it could be a like on Google reviews. That's also a way of the peer review, or on one of our OER platforms. But it could also be a peer review on your OER or the presentation you gave. And I'm also thinking at the moment at my institute, how can I give instructions to our teachers to peer review each other's work? But I'm still thinking about that. Might be interesting.
Yeah.
So no, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe via the quality model, some communities has, like nursing has their quality model of content. Maybe that's a nice framework.
Yeah. We also have a quality framework at HAN, so maybe we can use that. But maybe that the teacher is also more about the insights of the OER, so an expert, and then it's not only about the OER itself, but also what's in the OER.
Exactly. Yeah. And we at the VU University, when I worked there, we published an open textbook that was peer reviewed.
Yeah,
published.
really good.
So that's also a form. Yeah.
Yeah, I see Robert's giving the suggestion of open peer review. Sure.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. Yeah, sure, but I think technical it's a little bit of a problem, but yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why is it
That
a
is a
problem,
very
technical?
interesting suggestion.
Yeah, at our university actually, we were thinking about building something that people could recognize each other in our institute. But that's technical. Yeah, you could do it on Teams, of course, something like that. But so yeah, it's not that.
Okay, now I was thinking about another type of peer review, about peer reviewing of OER, for instance.
Yeah.
That could be an open peer review, so that it is clear who gives the feedback.
Yeah.
And also that it is clear who answers to the feedback.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm too focused or too much influenced by the current practices of peer review in articles, because we are also talking about open science. And what is striking me is that most of the open science journals, which are, for instance, Diamond Open Access or Gold Open Access, have a double-blind peer review. Why is this process not also open?
Yeah, well, I really agree with you. It would really be nice to have that for OER too. But yeah, maybe we have to look into that also technical. Maybe a suggestion for edu sources, Robert. But
yes, and I see the suggestion for Maura. The hypothesis is really a nice thing. That is actually the open alternative for Well, that's a closed system which per real or per something which is very much used in universities. But I can't remember its name.
Let me rephrase my it's not technical possible because I think it's of course there are already platforms who can do this, but the Han won't like them because they have a process on tools. So it's difficult at our institute.
Okay.
Yeah.
All institutions have their own processes for
Yeah.
introducing new tools, and
Yeah.
sometimes they are more strict
They are really
about
strict. We
this.
have had a data leak like 4 years ago. They're really strict. And maybe
I can
this
imagine.
framework, I will say this is from the open recognition movement. So actually that I think that will embrace the open peer review idea of Robert. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to
Sylvia, thank you for putting that up. Okay,
I have another example of recognition at our university. It's rather recent. We had a poster campaign with teachers having their statement and their photograph on posters. And then we have an ambassador for every faculty. They share their educational resources at the university, and they have a statement. So this is the recognition for them, but also for the OER movement itself. And one of the teachers, this one, Adragas, he worked with the open textbook that Sylvia was telling about. So, and another one asked me, when are those posters? When are you going to hang those posters? Because I have my annual review next week, and then I want to talk about this with my boss. So they were really keen on having this poster on campus, so they would get recognition. So I think it's a great success, those posters.
Sounds like a brilliant initiative, Monique. And of course, everyone likes to see their own achievements promoted.
Yeah, not everyone. Some are rather shy, etc. But I really love those ambassadors that they want to have and their picture and their statement. So yeah, I'm proud of them.
Yes, and Art is also working on the next version of the textbook I just shared. They are updating this version. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, are we ready for our discussion then?
Yeah.
Okay. Monique, I don't know if everyone else is missing this, but I'm missing the top of the slide.
The top of the slide.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's just my computer. It could be just me.
Yeah, we can see the questions. There are 3 questions on my screen.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Okay, so that's fine then. So, do we need
Sorry,
to...
Marta. If anyone else is not able to see the questions, I can copy and paste them in the chat. Okay, so take a look there. Okay.
Let's see. No, I think everyone else is fine. It's just my computer doing weird things. Yeah, okay.
Oh, you're being censored.
Do we need to have breakout rooms, or is it better to...
I should just do it do it in this room. We are not with so many people. We are with 18, so
Okay,
with
so
also presenters and hosts and yeah.
so then we have about half an hour to dedicate to this discussion. So let's just use maybe 10 minutes per question or so, more or less.
Yeah.
So who wants to start with the first one? What strategies can we think to promote recognition of open educational practices as part of open science initiatives?
There's something in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe she can tell.
Maura, do you want to say it or can you not talk and you prefer to put it in the notes in
Hi
the chat?
everyone. No, I can speak to that. No, we just it was our first time hosting a formal launch for one of our press books, and I suppose we spent a lot of time planning it. So we did the stakeholder mapping, we reached out, we promoted it in a newsletter on our website, we had it on the digital signage boards around the university. And there was a really good buzz. I think we had 70 people registering and we had 50 people attending. And
Wow.
we had a VP within our institution. She provided the opening address. So I really feel for the actual author. It's interesting. The author for the press book, she's quite nervous about public speaking. So when I suggested this initially, she said, "No, we don't need to do one." And I said, "No, let's do a formal launch." So it actually worked really well. She gave a wonderful demonstration, but she also shared, her motivations, her experience of working with the platform and why she wanted to do it and how she hopes it'll be used. And it was just a really, really lovely event. It was a really positive experience. So I think that sense of recognizing all of her work, I was just really happy that we did that because she put a huge amount of work into it. And I think that is the thing with OER. Sometimes we have expectations that people will jump straight into creating, say, a textbook just because you've bought software that facilitates that. But we can't always provide that recognition. So we need to ensure that we're aligning with their interests, their motivations, we're supporting what they want to do initially. And then hopefully in the future that can continue and grow. But it is that sense of fostering their enthusiasm instead of, maybe stifling that by, I've had other conversations with librarians where they've said, "Oh, I thought if we bought this software that everybody would just want to go and create or clone a book and customize it to their university." And it's just not always the case. You can't assume that people are going to want to do X, Y, or Z. But the people who do want to create and share, I think it's really, really important that we support them and encourage them and praise them and celebrate them. So just a little experience from our institution.
I just wanted to ask everyone in the room, how many of you have formal recognition practices even for open science in your institutions? Because I think that's part of the conversation. If you have already a process to recognize open science practices, then it's easier to extend that to open education practices. But do you all have formal recognition processes, or are they just more informal? I mean, in Ireland, I know that not every organization has it embedded in their promotion practices that everything has to be published as open science, etc. Yeah, Suzanne is saying more informal. I love that. That budget line disappeared in 2023. I think we all know that kind of thing.
Yeah. and it's about the
Yeah.
rewards. That's actually a little bit more an extrinsic motivator.
And Marijn, in your organization, there are formal ways of recognizing
Well,
open science?
I think the recognition at our university is normally also not very formal.
Okay,
So we're
okay.
more talking about the development or of people than about results, for example. So we do not really have a really formal cycle, but open science is part of what we think is important, and open education also. But not talking about results also means that it's more difficult to reward people or to being recognized. So I think that's a little bit of a problem, maybe, that because they make it semi-formal. It's also the case that I talk to my colleagues about how I do my work and not with my manager. They really want to go to these result-focused teams who talk together about what they do, what they deliver, and how they develop themselves. But it's on results it's a little bit difficult because when do you say people did a really good job, or when do you say people do a little bit of less job? That's of course difficult. But not talking about results also means it's sometimes difficult to being recognized. So I think that's so you first have to know what are the results we can recognize somebody on, and what are these results then?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Robert's comment is very interesting about the University of Utrecht, who have, at least on paper, recognition of open educational practices when they are about teaching students about open science. Yeah, that is an interesting one, because as Marijn said during the presentation, it's like the chicken and the egg. What's first? Because if you use a set of open data to teach students about data analysis, then that's open education. So in a way, I think those separations between open research, open science, open data, open education, all of it is so connected in practice, but it seems like we are intent on making differences when maybe things are a lot more fluid than we think.
And if you look a little bit more from a distance on open science and open education, and we see that open access is getting more and more like common, a little by little. But from my opinion, when you want to change from research to open access, you only have to, you only have to worry about a publication, okay? Not by
Yes.
commercial, but open. That's a big issue, but that's an issue. But if you look at open education, it's the researchers already did their research and they publish. So the change is the money and the governance to make a change in that. But if you are a researcher and you work, for example, in a university, the classes you give, you have to do extra work to make it open. So there is more needed than only money and a platform and an infrastructure to make it open. So if we look more in depth to things like that, maybe it also helps us in strategies or to talk to people about topics to make it happen. Yes, Paula.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, Sylvia, with my Polimi hat on this, I totally agree with that, because in our case, for example, I work in the Learning Innovation Unit at Politecnico di Milano. So when teaching staff finish their work on research, sometimes they reach out to us to ask how can we now make it open afterwards. And for them, the goal is to share the results as teaching materials. So it's not only sharing with an open license, but it's also transforming it into learning materials with learning outcomes, etc. So that's why they ask us. But that's a good opportunity anyway, because it's even if it's one professor at a time, one researcher at a time, that's when the discussion can start and you can tell them, look, next time, if you want, reach out early on so that we can discuss licensing in advance, and then everything comes with the same flow, and all the process becomes consistent. So I find it another way to work with faculty in a consistent way. It's an opportunity in the end. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, but also for the teacher or the researcher, they published before. So it was always open, but open behind the license, if you have a license, for example, of in a book that you have to buy, but it was open in the out. And the educational materials were in the classroom or in a closed learning environment. So people want to be sure that the quality is okay. They want to be sure about, they have their doubts on, can I do this or not? And there are more, yeah.
Maura's comment there is also very interesting, and I've heard this before, the business of how do you track the reuse of an open educational resource. It's more difficult than looking at citations for an open access article, and that can also have an impact.
Yes. We have something in the chat, I believe, on ideas. Can you maybe explain what you tried to say, Maura? What your comment is about?
Oh, sorry. My point was just that when people are new to open licensing, if I'm trying to explain the concept, there is that comparison between, if you publish a journal article, you can then check how many times it's been cited. So if I'm encouraging them, because I will often say to people, just start small. You could have a checklist, you could have a worksheet, it could be a presentation, and consider building that with open licensing in mind and then sharing that. And we have a forum, we have an OER forum where they could upload that in Ireland. But then I'm asked, how will I know that if it's used or reused? So it is that balancing act. And I just suggest trying to build in feedback mechanisms wherever possible, in sharing it with people, inviting their feedback, trying to build that collaborative spirit. But I think it just emphasizes that, historically, maybe we've done things the wrong way. We've required too much of that, the bibliometric element rather than the value element and the adaptation value that OER can bring. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and then, for example, if you use research in other forms of knowledge sharing, then another research article, then you're also being noted in some, for example, in Google Scholar or in ResearchGate. But also if your OER or research on your OER is used in another way, other kind of knowledge products, for example, then it's also difficult to track them. And but it's also with I made a blended learning scan once, and a black box about what happened when I put it open. And then one time I was searching and then I saw that somebody used it as a research method, that they use my framework as a research method to do interviews with teachers, and I was like, huh? Okay, that wasn't supposed. I didn't build as a research tool, so that was funny to see that, but that was by accident that I saw that. So how can you track the citations to your OER? And I think it's really important to make this impact visible to your managers, for example.
And Robert has an idea about that. Robert says maybe it's not the right way to go to think that way. Maybe you can bring it in, Robert, your thoughts.
Well, maybe citation. I know citations is the holy grail for researchers, age index and whatever measures there are. But it's also a bit of, yeah, it also gives a lot of, well, it's one of the discussions is about these recognition rewards of other things and research is about this publication pressure. It's a publisher period pressure, and this counting citation is one element of it, which adds to this pressure. So I was thinking maybe we should learn from that, which is common in science and in research, to not do the same thing and have the same trap. We fall into the same trap because we have currently the way to do it otherwise. I don't know how otherwise, and maybe it can be part of it, but maybe we should not think about having a whole kind of structure to make this very important.
But I thought also last week I heard a suggestion of at least do a DOI on OER.
Yes.
So it's the link is trackable and it says similar and well,
Yeah.
that's maybe an easy way to track your. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's still about citations.
Yeah, or work with linked data that you
Yeah.
can, by your researcher, see what he is publishing, but also creating on open learning materials, maybe. Or in collections of that the librarians help to build up qualitative collections of materials.
I think we have actually moved to question number 2, practical approaches. Like adding a DOI, like those kinds of things. But I really like what Maura talked about earlier about doing a stakeholder scan and be very clear of who is going to be interested in the material. And that's another practical approach.
May I ask a question about that, Marta?
Yes.
And also, Mara, you are involved if you want to speak up to that. Because I see the point and I find the stakeholder map very useful in theory. I also think that an OER can run through so many different paths that you cannot foresee when you are creating and sharing it, because it's actually in the hands of users then to decide which path to walk with that OER, maybe combined with others. So I understand the purpose and I agree that it's a starting point, but it's just, an interesting activity for your own purposes, because you never know who. And this is one of the main differences that as a practitioner I see in open science materials and open educational materials. With open education, if you think about reuse and remix and adaptation to different learning contexts, the workflow should take that into account. That's my take. So the learning outcomes might be another way that we can think about using as a track record for the OER that are related to that. So content related instead of only resource related.
Yeah, I agree, Paula, but I'm thinking more in terms of, and maybe this is because this is what's happening in my own context, but I think in terms of trying to push policy forward so that there is formal recognition in open science workflows. If you try and map your stakeholders for particular OER that might be relevant to them, that then translates into, oh, this is relevant to me, but actually it is an OER, it is open education, and maybe it's in my own interest to push for an OER policy, for an open education policy. So that's why I'm thinking about stakeholder mapping, not so much because I totally agree with you. We never know when, like, you put this thing out in the wild and who knows, as Marijn was just saying there, but more in terms of look at this stuff that is really relevant to something that you're doing now, and you are a stakeholder who may push this agenda to the right places in the university.
Yeah, Paula, I agree with you as well to an extent. I suppose when I mentioned stakeholder mapping, I meant aligned to the launch of the resource. But I do feel as well in my own institution, every week we get emails inviting us to training, telling us about a publication. It's Green Week or it's, there's some type of an event taking place. And I feel there can be a huge amount of overwhelm amongst our colleagues that I don't have time to read this, I didn't get to that, etc. So what we did was we tried to select cohorts that we felt could actionably use the resource that we'd created in the very near future. I also created a marketing pack for them. So we created things like a Canvas slide. Well, it's very simple, Paula. It's everything you already do, but it's just little QR codes, little slides that they could insert into their slide deck. The creator put together like a 1.5 minute long video, very simple things. But we were just trying to say, we want to personally invite you to this event, showcasing this resource because we value your ability to help us to promote this. And then I suppose for me, that's the first wave. That's the way we did it. And then after that, then we made it our OER of the month. So again, it was shared on social media in that context, and it was shared on our AV screens around the university. So, and then I shared it on mailing lists and different things. And we presented about it at, international events. We just shared, that we had published it, etc. So I suppose I just felt, as I said, it was our first time doing a launch, but I feel the way we did it was quite useful because, say, for example, we had people coming back. I'd invited somebody who looks after the peer support team. So we have students who look after our other students. So they are paid to provide support and guidance and help. So the coordinator for that program, I had invited her personally. So she gave feedback on the day. This is great. I'm going to share this with our peer leaders, which was exactly what I wanted. So I think it just depends on the nature of the OER because some will just have very broad appeal. But for some, I feel it's worth trying to map them out. I just wanted to share as well. I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Being Human Festival. It's a series of events. It takes place. It's shared from the UK, but I attended one of their training sessions this morning, and they provide a sequence of training events. And today they were talking about creative public engagement strategies. And I think that's the other side of what you're saying, Paula. We actually want everybody to benefit from this, even, people who aren't in higher education necessarily. But just if anybody's interested, they're running a number of other workshops. And I really, really love their material. They were talking about having food and drink events, having walking tours, they gave an example of some type of a horror event where they had somebody in modeling something that would be used in a horror film. And then they had people engaging in painting something or other before they left. I'm not giving a great account of it because they gave so many examples, but it's Being Human Festival, and you can register for those. But like they gave an example today of inviting people to create a photo collage. So I'm going to try and suggest that. I have something on in April, and I'm going to try and suggest that. So I think it's that thing of thinking locally initially. And what they said today was, if you're running an event, your audience and catering for your audience is the most important thing. So if we have an OER where we feel there's a specific audience, maybe trying to target them initially, and then thinking in circles, maybe more broadly than that, and opening it up. I just feel that that might be an approach that we will try to use going forward. So you're kind of hopefully getting the best of both worlds.
Mhm. I love that idea, Maura. I think it's really worth considering. Okay, how about we think a little bit about our role as librarians in embedding all of these open education reward and recognition into open science? Where do we fit in? Because I think sometimes even in academic libraries, there are silos between those looking after open research and open scholarship and those looking more at teaching and that kind of thing. So, is there a way in which we can marry the two successfully?
Maybe it's an idea to start with reuse, what's
Yeah.
already out there, and to bring that into the institution. And as you're
Mhm.
in your role as a librarian or domain-specific librarian, that you show which creative materials are out there that can be reused to give students a good learning experience. Yeah.
Maura's comment there is really interesting, that the library is involved in the development of new teaching programs and program reviews, so that you can encourage the use of open access and OER in all new programs, reading lists and teaching, which I think is the perfect opportunity.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen everywhere though.
I think even at home, there are two groups, one for open education and one for open science. And
Yeah.
it's difficult to make our board also known that it's similar, but maybe the less similar part is the more that's more technical. So which platforms do we use? Where do I publish it? For example, Open Science has a green, gold, and diamond. How do we do that? So because I think the silos are also there because there are practical differences, little
Mhm.
differences, and so then it's easier for an organization to say, then I do this.
Yes.
So yeah, but that's okay for the practical part, I think. But maybe how can you conjoin them more together from a more policy perspective? And it was even difficult for us. So I made a publication policy, but it took 6 years before I could make a publication policy for both research and education. And I actually called them knowledge products now, so it's even broader than
Oh,
education or research, because the policies I make are also knowledge products actually. So I made it as wide as possible because the underlying principles, even at in the Netherlands, the things I make for my institute are from the institute. That's uh, so that's not different for research or for education or for policies. So
yeah, it's
the
the same
line
here.
policy must be the same. Only the practical part is different. Well,
Actually, for me, one of the things that I'm going to try in future, and I think this is true in many places, the licensing is the hook,
yeah.
because both my colleagues in our research support team and myself are talking about Creative Commons licenses from different viewpoints. So I think collaborations there can actually lead to greater awareness of open education and open educational resources, and also the fact that some researchers are being funded to produce educational resources as some of their outputs, and that therefore introducing open education into their thinking as researchers when they apply for a grant is also an important thing to do.
There's another comment in the chat from Donna. Thank you, Donna. Building on the librarian role in working with students on student undergraduate research development that can lead to other relationships and projects like a research symposium proceeding OER. That's an interesting one. Ambitious and lovely, I would say.
That sounds like a really interesting thing. Yeah.
So at my institution, we're having trouble building textbooks for courses awareness, but we do seem to have people that are interested in using it in other ways. And the library does do a lot of collaboration with our undergraduate research program. And the director who oversees that is now using Pressbooks for her proceedings twice a year. It's a journal called Range, R-A-N-G, and it's just publishing the abstracts of the students from the poster symposium. But she also hires students. She hires a student editor and student reviewers that oversee the project. And
That
so it's
sounds
kind of doing it
fascinating.
a real life experience for those students as well, which has been really interesting. It was in the United States, it was promoted as one of the innovative ways of using OERs last year. I'll post the link to her journal in there. So she's been doing it for quite a while, and it's getting recognition on campus in that now there's someone who's interested in a medical school student journal and someone from a discipline who's interested in conference proceedings for their professional organization through Pressbooks. So I think there's other possibilities. There was another case of a medical school group that had a website on evidence-based practice, which wasn't a full, like, blown textbook, but that server was going away, and they transitioned that into an OER as well. And then I have student workers that work with me who learned Pressbooks and do some editing, and they were editors on that medical school journal. So I think that involving students is also a way to bring it into campus in a way that students are getting real world experience.
Yes.
That's such a lovely idea. And we had an open research week in the middle of February in Ireland. And there were several people talking about journals that were being published as open access journals that were showcasing research by undergraduate students. And I think that's something that is getting traction here. So that is a really lovely way of offering something that can then help us promote open education and OER too.
And it's also open pedagogy, of course.
Of course. That looks really interesting.
I also, the two students that I work with are undergraduate students, and they did not know about OERs when they were hired in the library to do some project work. And they learned Pressbooks by creating their own Pressbook, which is open OERs from a student perspective. It's a very short little book. They collected data in the library by tabling about student perspectives on OERs. And then they published their own little OER book.
That's brilliant. I love that idea. So you have two converts now.
And I'll put the link up for that one as well.
Thanks a lot for these resources, Donna.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
They've also presented at some online OER conferences about their perspective on OERs, how important it is for them from students. So they did a lot of research on OERs, and they're currently working on a 3-module Canvas tutorial for faculty to do in a self-directed way to learn about OERs, which I'm going to try to promote this coming fall through our Center for Teaching to promote it to faculty. We had a 5-module Canvas course, and the students said it was too long and too involved, and they had particular ideas about what they think faculty should know about OERs, so they created their own 3-module.
Fantastic. I work a fair bit with students creating digital literacy tutorials, which I try to publish as OER in any possible way I can, but it's always really interesting to see what they think will hold people's attention and how they think about how long things should be and all of that. It's a really important input, certainly into the work that I do, and I know other people who think the same. Yeah, I agree with Maura. And I think we are getting close to the end of our workshop. This was such a stimulating conversation. Thank you, everyone who contributed to it. And as usual, we will be sharing all our materials through Zenodo. I hope we can gather all the links because there are a lot on the chat. But if you are interested in following us and seeing what we do next, keep an eye out for our next workshop. We don't have the registration link yet, but it will be shared by ENOEL channels soon. And if you want to be updated, just email us.
Thank you, Marta. May I? Yeah, because we are going to have also an open education cafe in advance the week before, and I will be the one sharing the link to the registration page for both very soon. And the focus will be this time on working more on practical tools, what is needed to think about remixing, what is needed to design by reusing existing materials and adapting them. And then the workshop, of course, will focus on practical tools and practical processes to do that effectively. So the Open Education Cafe will be on the 12th of May, and then 1 week after we are going to have the workshop. I'm going to share the registration links very soon for both. And about the links that we had in the chat, I will take care of collecting all of them and sharing them in the YouTube description of this workshop recording. But if our facilitators and our guests agree, I would easily add a slide at the end of this presentation before uploading it to Zenodo with the list of the links that we've been sharing today, because it would be a pity to lose them along the way. So the more they are accessible, the better for all of us, I think. So it will be my pleasure to do that. So count on the slides to be available soon. Don't worry about copying the links now or to saving them from your browser if you were exploring. We are going to share everything very soon. And thank you again to all of our facilitators and to Marijn to be our guest again today. I'm very grateful. But also for all the participants who've been actively sharing their experiences and their insights. it's a process. We are in a process all together. We will do better in time. So I'm grateful for this community work. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.